While the life of the historical actors/fictional characters oscillating across still life and Dong unsettles the viewer's perception of images as documentary or as fictional with the exaggerated quote-unquote documentary-ness emerging from the ambiguous existence of Han and Xiaomage, the actuality and duration of both films are justified in a rather natural way, yet still with a little twist of both the documentary and fictional cinematic impulses. This time, the perception of temporality is rather unfolded in a more documentary sense in the fiction film Still Life than in the documentary Dong. On the one hand, the actuality and duration of Dong is justified by the progress of Liu's creation of the oil paintings and what Liu was able to or unable to capture for the completion of his paintings due to the flooding and the rapidly transforming landscape of the Three Gorges Dam. The temporality of Dong is justified by Liu's artistic representation of the landscape that bears and embodies such temporality. On the other hand, in Still Life, the temporality is directly expressed and justified squarely in the province of the landscape of the Three Gorges Dam and the province of the viewer's perception of the construction of the Three Gorges Dam and the surrounding landscape under demolition. These landscapes and the viewer's perception of them, therefore, lock the narrative taking place in that landscape within a single unified time frame, the present. This conscious shift to gazing at the demolition and construction of the Three Gorges Dam project, its resultant demolition of the surrounding Fengjie village and the displacement of the residents and the migrant workers, materialized Jia's documentary-inflected realism of the on-the-spot aesthetics, 现场, in Still Life. This on-the-spot aesthetics emerges through the Three Gorges Dam, a material entity in contemporary Chinese urban geography, constitutes a particular social and epistemic space in which, quote, orality, performativity, and an irreducible specificity of personal and social experience are acknowledged, recorded, and given aesthetic expressions, end of quote. Therefore, it constructs a specific temporality that is consequently unfolding in the present as both a symbiotic partner and a form of critique of the social to which it tries to give shapes and meanings. In this regard, Chris Berry also recognized the quote-unquote presentness of the space constructed by the on-the-spot aesthetics deployed in jazz cinema. In Jia Zhangke and the Temporality of Post-Socialist Chinese Cinema in the Now and Then, Berry seeks to foreground the documentary concreteness of jazz 现场 by adding a historical and national extension onto the temporality of the quote-unquote presentness of the on-the-spot and in-the-now realism. He accordingly terms this temporality as, quote, the temporality of in the now and then, end of quote. According to Berry, this historical and national extension that constitutes jazz temporality of, quote, in the now and then, end of quote, demand jazz films to be read through a historical and national framework, and therefore questions the present. Nonetheless, similar to the privilege Vaughan bestows upon the viewers, Berry also emphasizes that his consideration of the temporality in jazz cinema as in the now and then, quote, is not inscribed in the film in themselves, but would be very much the result of audience interpretation, end of quote. At the first glance, there seems to have no doubt regarding Berry's interpretation that the temporality of jazz cinema, quote, adding history to the in-the-now feels of on-the-spot realism, end of quote, produces an in-the-now and then temporality that, quote, brings history back into on-the-spot realism without returning to the linear progress narratives typically of modernity, end of quote. However, a closer look at jazz documentary-inflected realism deployed in Still Life is necessary to dissect Berry's perspective. Moreover, through the incorporation of the archive effect and archive affect brought into view by Jaimie Baron. In the archive effect, I would like to retouch Berry's interpretation and view jazz temporality as, quote, in a now then. End of quote. This temporality, instead of suggesting a separation between the past and the present by putting then as a dispensable attachment, emphasized the presentness that is constitute of the archive effect that, by reminding the viewers of the past, consequently adheres the past to the present. In regard to illustrate my interpretation of jazz in the now-then temporality, it is essential to contemplate upon the landscape of the Three Gorges Dam, which is the heart of jazz still life. Distinctive from his predecessors who take the urban landscape as a given condition, Jia, in still life, deals directly with urbanization as a process through his contemplation upon the demolition in progress of the Three Gorges Dam and its surrounding landscape. Therefore, still life explicitly materializes what Gilles Deleuze describes as the time image and his two-volume theories on the time image and the movement image. Time is a vital concept of still life as it centers on the vanishing landscape of the Three Gorges area. In Deleuze's terminology, a film composed of minimal cause and effect narrative progressions will likely approximate the time image, an image of time itself rather than of rational or plot-driven movement in time. In this way, the time of still life, instead of for dramatic needs, is organized in accordance with this lifetime, and therefore offers the experience of time as, quote, simple duration in a life that is more full of quotidian moments, inactivity and boredom than spectacular events even in an era of dramatic historical change, end of quote. By rooting still life profoundly in the present, still life therefore reaches a more direct access to time as duration opens up. This in the now then temporality is extensively portrayed in a minimalist fashion through jazz layering of the narrative and the landscape surrounding the Three Gorges Dam. In still life, Jia often positions his character in the middle of the ruins of Fengjie village, which is under demolition due to the Three Gorges Dam project. While the characters simply wander about the ruins for a long time and do not reveal any obvious narrative progression, the landscape of the Three Gorges Dam, the site of demolition in progress, becomes the site through which the duration of lifetime unfolds. Moreover, by minimizing the movement and the narrative of the characters wandering around the ruins, these characters are, therefore, portrayed as flattened, lifeless silhouettes, contrasting with those lifeless characters/silhouettes that carry no sense of time. The cityscape of Fengjie village and its surrounding landscape of the Three Gorges Dam, which are both constantly under demolition and reconstruction, vividly unfold the time as duration, a duration in which not only the dramatic transformation of the Chinese society takes place, but also the archive effect and affect come into full play. As the cityscapes and landscapes embody time as duration, the sense of documentary-ness emerges through the changing of the landscapes, such as the constant falling of rubrics, which at the same time brings out the archive effect and affect, while the dramatic transformation of the landscape is layered with the motionless, lifeless characters wandering about it. Therefore, the exaggeration of the time as duration enables the sense of quote-unquote documentary-ness to disturb the viewer's perception of still life as merely fiction films by directing their attention to the cityscapes and landscape through which the lifetime unfolds. While I agree with Barry's interpretation of the quote-unquote in the now temporality that Jia's still life is rooted profoundly in the present, I argue that this sense of quote-unquote in the now is not achieved simply through the on-the-spot aesthetics. Rather, it is achieved through the viewer's perception of the duration of lifetime unfolded through the landscapes under demolition. Furthermore, I contend against Barry's argument for the historical and national sense carried by the notion of and then, attached to the in and now temporality. Instead, I would like to borrow Baron's conception of the archive effect and argues that Instead of carrying a historical sense, what Jia's documentary-inflected realism actually achieves is the sense of archive effect within a single unified contemporary time frame of still life. Instead of utilizing cinematic cues such as flashbacks and voiceover to contrast different times and create a subjective consciousness of memory and history, still life, quote, terms imputed authentic details and traffics in their effects, and of quote, to evoke both the archive effect and archive affect. Such archive effect and affect are most obviously transmitted by the child labor and Xiaomage in still life, through whom a particular soundscape mixed with the soundscape of the demolition at the time of the filming of still life is realized. Pop sounds, voices, dialectics, accents, gestures, and demeanors, together with the signs sprayed onto many walls of the village buildings that indicate the water level of 156.5 meters during the third phase of the construction, together invokes the archive effect and affect that register year 2005.